We're going to set the stage for our talk by quoting a strange pasuk in the Torah, a pasuk that obviously speaks to us of the Yom Kippur day. Shabbat Shabbaton hulachem, I'm reading from the first page. V'nisem es nafsho sechem b'tishola chodesh bo erev, me erev ad erev tishbesu Shabbatchem. This shall be a Sabbath of Sabbaths, Shabbat Shabbaton for you. You shall afflict your souls on the 9th in the evening. May Erev ad Erev. That's the phrase that I want you to think about for a moment. May Erev ad Erev tishbesu Shabbatchem. Why is the Torah telling me that I'm going to experience Yom Kippur from nighttime to nighttime, or from evening to evening? The fact is that every Jewish day is from evening to evening. So there are a number of different commentaries who speak to the question, but I'd like to suggest yet another answer. And the best way to introduce it is through my father, alav shalom, his favorite joke. He wasn't much of a jokester. He was a quiet man, a wonderful man. But he had one joke that for some reason really stuck with him. It's a story of John, a fellow in a small town who is very happy and living a wonderful life, but has one dream. And that one dream is he wants to be on stage. He wants to have his moment in the limelight. And he sees there's no way that that's going to happen until all of a sudden a filming crew visits his town. And they put out a sign asking for understudies and runner-ups. And sure enough, he interviews, and they choose him to be one of the people in a crowd, and they even give him a line to say. They even give him a line to say, and that line to say is, "Hearken unto the cannons." All right, so sure enough, John is practicing for these weeks. He's trying to figure out how to say it. Hearken unto the cannons, hearken unto the cannons. Back and forth, pacing back and forth. This is his moment. This is really the moment that he's been waiting for. And sure enough, time comes. He's in a room, and the play is playing out outside the door, when all of a sudden they say to him, "Okay, it's your turn." He gets pushed out the door, big boom. What the heck was that? Hearken unto the cannons. Now, the reason that joke, I think, meant something to my father is because it speaks of a very, very specific truth. And that is that throughout our lives, cannons, or maybe a better simile would be trumpets, sound at various times in our lives, often in unexpected moments. Some of them we have the zchus to hear. Some of them we ignore. But missing those cannons, missing those trumpets, missing that opportunity is something that we should try not to do, especially when it comes to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a day where the trumpets sound throughout the day. They don't stop. Each moment of the day has its own particular flavor, its own particular message. Each section of each time differs one from the other, and it's our job to try to capture, and place ourselves in the moment, in that moment of Yom Kippur. And therefore, may Erev ad Erev tishbesu Shabbatchem. There's a totality here. There's a wholeness. A day that emerges from wonderful, specific moments. A day that emerges as a powerful day meant to teach us tremendous lessons. So we're going to take a look at 3 moments when the trumpets sound on Yom Kippur. Each moment is characterized by a tefillah. We're going to take a look at Kol Nidrei, Yizkor, and Neila. We begin with Kol Nidrei. Kol Nidrei is, you see it on the page in front of you, on the first page, Kol Nidrei, V'esarei, V'charamei, etc. The words are familiar to us, the tune is familiar to us, but there's a real question. Why do we recite this at all? Why does Kol Nidrei not only recited, a question would exist if it was recited at any time during the year, but we're saying it at the beginning of the most significant day of the year. Why? Kol Nidrei is not a prayer. It's not a tefillah. If you take a look at it, it basically is a legal formula, or we're trying to create a legal formula. And that formula is that we want to do away with all vows, and we'll talk about whether it's past or future in just a moment. We want to do away with all vows that we might have taken or maybe will take in the days to come. And that's really the totality of this paragraph. But from the moment Kol Nidrei began to be part of our liturgy, debate has swirled around this paragraph in powerful ways. Let's see what we know. Turn the page, please. The origin of Kol Nidrei is unknown. We don't know where it or when it comes from. What we do know, however, is that Kol Nidrei was already ensconced in our liturgy by the Gaonic era, the era immediately following the close of the Talmud. And one of the reasons that we know that it existed in the Gaonic era is because the Gaonim criticized it and tried to do away with it. Numerous statements were made by the Gaonim. I've brought three of them for you. Rabbi Hudai Goen, Ein Noagin Lo B'Yeshiva V'Lo B'Chol Makom L'Hatir Nedarim Lo B'Rosh Harabim Lo B'Yom Kippur. This is not something that we should be doing. Certainly not as the opening of the holiest day of the year. Rav Sar Shalom Gaon, Ein Koach Ba'olam L'Hatir Shuos Lo Hafer Klal Lo B'Eretz Yisrael V'Lo B'Chutz La'aretz. Can't be. There's no power given to you to do away with vows that you've made. You have to deal with them. They exist. You can't just say, poof, they're gone. And Rav Amram Goen, one of the most famous of the Gonim, Sheminhag Shtus Huzeh. Kol Nidrei, this is a minhag shtus. This is a foolish custom. And it is forbidden to say it. So, what accounts for the staying power of this paragraph? What is it that somehow has captured our attention or captured our imagination so much that we disagree with all of these Gaonic criticisms, and we've kept and the many more throughout the years, and we've kept this paragraph right where it is, opening Yom Kippur. There are some theories that say that it acquired a powerful meaning, and I'm sure most of us have heard of this, powerful meaning during periods of turbulence for the Jew. That often when Jews were made to swear allegiance to another tradition by force, Kol Nidrei was perceived by some to be their prayer. Kodesh Baruch Hu, we were forced to do this. We don't mean it. We don't. But therefore, it acquires an overlay. Some say the Marranos in Spain. Some others say other places that perhaps explains a little bit as to why it continues to exist. But at the same time, it's been destructive. It's been fodder for anti-Semitism. You can imagine. Imagine the anti-Semites who look at this, they're starting the holiest day of the year, and what are they doing? They're trying to abrogate their vows. You can't trust the Jews. You can't trust them. Their words speak for themselves. The original form of Kol Nidrei was dealing with past vows. The Rashbam, and by the way, here I have a mistake I did this on purpose so I could do tshuva. I don't know how I did it. He is Rashi's grandson, not his son-in-law. And Rabbeinu Tam is his younger brother. But the Rashbam changes the paragraph from the past to the future. He says legally that's more acceptable, and we should be praying about what we're going to do. And therefore, if you look in the text now that we have on that first page, you'll see that it says from this Yom Kippur to the next Yom Kippur that comes, etc. And some Sidurim have both. This Yom Kippur to the next Yom Kippur, from last Yom Kippur to this Yom Kippur, covering everything. But even though the Rashbam changed the thrust of the request, he didn't change all the verbs. So if you look at the paragraph as it is on your page, it really is contradictory. On the one hand, it says, we're talking about future vows, but then it starts saying when we made them, if we made them, how we made them. So really what's happening there is too many cooks spoil the broth. So the Rashbam puts in his addition, but doesn't edit the rest of the text. And it's so again, what accounts for the staying power? Why is Kol Nidrei, why does it grab us so deeply that we've insisted on retaining it as the paragraph, I won't say the tefillah, as the paragraph which opens Yom Kippur? So I think that we might understand if we consider a very strange medrash. Medrash doesn't deal so much with Yom Kippur as with Briat Olam, creation of the world. It's on the second page. Omar Rabbi Avahu, third page, sorry. Omar Rabbi Avahu, Melamed shehoya borei olamos umacharivan, ad shebora es elu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he created the world, actually had a couple of duds. He created one world, destroyed it, created another world, destroyed it, until finally he created the world that we have, and he said, this one satisfies me. Now that's a very strange medrash. But I've always felt that what the Medrash is saying is that God builds into the process of creation the phenomenon of recreation. The fact that we can do differently, the fact that we can speak differently, the fact that we can act differently. We don't have to be held to those shackles that have kept us from moving forward this past year. And that's what I think Kol Nidrei means to us, particularly in the area of the spoken word. Kol Nidrei, we start off the Yontif, and this, again, it's just my thought, something to think about, but I would hope that it will enrich your Kol Nidrei experience a bit. As we begin this holiest of days, we turn to ourselves and we say, we've created worlds with our words. And some of those worlds aren't good. Some of the things we've said created realities that hurt people, that even hurt yourself. And therefore, what we say on Kol Nidrei says we're going to focus on the spoken word, and we're going to say that we want Hashem. We want to correct those mistakes. We want to correct those worlds that we created through Lashon Hara. We want to destroy the worlds that we created through unfeeling comments. Worlds that we created when we said something to someone that struck them, and we didn't mean it, but we shouldn't have said it. And we knew we shouldn't have said it, but we said it anyway. And every one of us, there isn't one of us, if someone here, you'll let me know afterwards, but I don't think there's any one of us that can't at least identify one or two or three or more times where we spoke and where what we said shouldn't have been said. Kol Nidrei gives us the opportunity to consider that. And when the Rashbam changes from the past to the future, I think he's doing something else. I think he's also telling us, you can do tshuva for what you did, but you can't undo it. It still has its effect. And even though your tshuva may be heartfelt, the fact is that the words were said, the act was done. And therefore the Rashbam says you can't do for past, you have to do for future. But all of this speaks to us, I think, in a very, very real way. Kol Nidrei, words. Words. How we've used them, the worlds we've created with them, and our desire to correct them. All right, so that's Kol Nidrei, at least for the moment. The next tefillah is a tefillah. It's a tefillah that I'm going to tell you my experience, and when I've shared this with others, they've told me that they experienced the same thing. For years, I was part of the blessed group that did not have to stay in the shul for Kol Nidrei, right? And all that time, I had... Oh, for Yizkor, thank you, sorry. For Yizkor. Good. We're watching our words. So I was part of that blessed group that didn't have to go in or stay in for Yizkor. And some shuls, everyone stays in, but in the shul I was in, somehow Yizkor acquired this majestic place in our mind. It must be a very meaningful tefillah. It must be very powerful and difficult. But we thank God we don't have to say it. Until, unfortunately, my father passed away. And I no longer was part of the blessed group outside. I was part of the group inside. And I remember distinctly my first Yizkor. This is it? That's it? One paragraph at the top of the page there. Yizkor Elokim Nishmas Avi Mori, etc. That's it. That's the whole thing. Wow. And as time went on, I wasn't only bothered by the lack of drama, I was bothered by what it is that we were saying. God, please remember my father. What, God's going to forget my father? I don't understand. What does it mean to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to remember someone? And why? Because I'm giving tzedakah. No. You should remember him because of who he was. What's the zushtel here? What's the fact that I'm giving tzedakah so important that we are using that in the Yizkor prayer? And for years it bothered me. We added in the shul, we added certain psalms that we said before. We added the Kel Mole. We dressed it up a little bit. But this was the paragraph. This is it. But then I heard a beautiful interpretation of a strange statement in Pirkei Avot. Take a look at the bottom of the page. Akavya ben Mahalel Omer, famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Histakel b'shlosh advarim v'yato ba lidei avera, da me'ayin basa ul'an ato lech, v'lifnei mi ato asid litain din v'cheshbon. Know where you come from, towards where you're going, and he elaborates in the next sentence, and before whom you are going to give or experience a din v'cheshbon. Now, those two words, din, judgment, cheshbon is what? A reckoning, right? What comes first? Shouldn't it be cheshbon v'din? Before whom you're going to have a reckoning, God's going to reckon and decide on the basis of that record and the basis of other things. So it's cheshbon v'din. Why does he say din v'cheshbon? So one interpreter says as follows. I've tried to find it again and I haven't found it, but I know it's there. When we stand before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ad Me'av Esrim Shana, for each of us, we experience two procedures of judgment. The first is the din. The din is what I did in my lifetime, who I was, what I did, how I acted, what I didn't do, what I failed to do. That's the din. And judgment is placed upon me and it ends. But then there is another reckoning. And that reckoning is the reckoning that takes place after I'm here. The reckoning that's based on the people that I touched, the lives that maybe were enhanced with something that I did, people that I may have met and said hello to, or what? That's the reckoning. That's the reckoning. That reckoning continues ad infinitum. It doesn't end. And it continues to reverberate across the generations. And therefore, din v'cheshbon. You experience din, but then you experience the even more important reckoning of what you leave behind. Take that back to Yizkor. Yizkor Hashem, what are we saying when we say it? We're saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's really only one reason we're here. And that's because of the people that we are remembering. And we'd ask you to remember, and interestingly enough, I have a theory in terms of the word Zachor when it comes to the biblical use, particularly with Hashem. It means he's about not just to remember, but he's about to act on remembrance. Every time you have a Zecher, there's an action or a thought or something that is attached to it. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're here because of them. We're part of their reckoning. And that's what we want you to see. And we want you to see that we're giving tzedakah, because that's what they taught us. And it's not just simply empty words. It's a statement that we are here because of them. And therefore, once I heard that and once I learned that, Yizkor became better for me. I understood it better, and I was able to think about things that I could construe that my father or mother gave to me and changed my life and continued to reverberate. My mom was a teacher, and all the students that she taught. Just think of the people that you touch. Just think of the people whose lives may be enriched by a simple word that you say, and recognize that those reverberations are part of your cheshbon. It's all part of you. Finally, we turn to Neila. Neila is a strange phenomenon, and we're going to see that, according to Rav Soloveitchik, it's even a stranger phenomenon. He never was afraid of creating complication in a situation. Tanan Hassam, what's the source of Neila? Where does it come from? So there's a Mishnah that says, Shosha Prokim Bashana Kohanim Nosim Es Kapeim Arba. There are 4 times of the year, 3 times of the year, where the Kohanim do Birchas Kohanim 3 times. 4 times. Shacharis, Mincha, Musaf, Neila. And those times were public fast days. The Ma'amodos are gatherings in towns where the Kohanim have gone to work in the Beis HaMikdash, and there's a gathering in the town to mark that and to say some tefillot, etc., and the Neila was recited on that day, and Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is the only day that we have that we retain that Neila. So Neila is unique in our experience, even though originally it wasn't unique in that way. It's unique in our experience only to Yom Kippur. But the Talmud goes on and actually says something very interesting. Turn the page. Minayin l'neila. It's Talmud Yerushalmi. From where do we derive this concept of Neila? Look, the rabbis were very, very honest and very open. There has to be, you can't just make up a tefillah. You can't just say, you have to have some sort of source that gives you the opportunity or gives you the right to create this new tefillah. Minayin Neila. Omar Rabbi Levi, Gam ki sarbu tefillah, mikan shekol hamarbe b'tefillah ne'eneh. So it's actually the source for Neila, the rabbis say, is a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Pasuk in Yeshayahu, the second statement on the page, says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when you open your hands, you lift your hands, and when you turn your eyes away from me, I will turn away from you. Though you pray at length, I will not listen. So that's the negative. If you pray at length, I'm not going to listen. Say the rabbis, what does that teach us? That when you're deserving and you pray at length, you're answered. In other words, prolonging tefillah, adding to the tefillah, is something that is not only laudable, but useful. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will listen to your tefillot if you would elaborate. So what that means is that Neila is the prolongation of prayer. That's its source. Its source is that we are taking tefillah, and by adding Neila, we're prolonging the tefillah experience. But Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal basically said the following. If we say that Neila is the prolongation of prayer, then there has to be that prayer existent. If you want to say Neila and just come to the shul for Neila, says the Rav, you're not allowed to say it. You can't just come for Neila. You have to have prayed prior to the Neila on the day of Yom Kippur, so the Neila can be part of that prolongation of prayer. And he held this lahalacha. He went a step further. He said, even if you only miss one of the tefillot, let's say you did Marav and Shacharis, you missed Mincha, you can't say Neila. Now, obviously, this is a very, very powerful halachic suggestion, and there are many who debate it, but what the Rav is saying, and his words are very beautiful, he says that Yom Kippur is transformed into a Yom Tefillah, to a day of prayer. And as such, the purpose of Neila is that Neila is the request to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that all our previous prayers should be heard. That's what Neila is. Neila is not independent, it's not on its own, but it needs to have something to base itself on. And that is the tefillot, which I've experienced throughout the day. Now, this has very, very important philosophical points within it. And that is, it is the counterbalance to another powerful teaching. And that powerful teaching is that Kone Olamo B'Shah Achas. Famous statement in the Talmud, based upon an individual who, one of the Rabbanim, who went off the derech and then came back and he did something. He was Kone Olamo B'Shah Achas. That one act, the fact that he turned it around, he acquired his place in the world to come. Kone Olamo. And this is a concept that we use periodically when we're talking to people, when we're encouraging people. We're saying you can do that one good thing. Do that one good thing, and you'll be Kone Olamcha B'Shah Achas. You'll acquire your world with that one act. And this particular moment or this particular powerful event will be the event that pushes you over. And the Rambam says that we should see the world as half Sakai and half Chayav. We should see ourselves as half Sakai and Chayav. And the one act that we do is going to push us over the edge, get us to the right place. But Neila says, wait a minute. That's beautiful. That's nice. That's really good. And we believe it. There can be times, unusual times, when specific people can be Konesh Olamam B'Shah Achas. But in the real world, in terms of the ongoing day-to-day experience of every one of us, and not just that special person, it's loyalty. It's being there. It's being there day in and day out, week in and week out, that earns us our place. And that's what Neila is saying. Neila is saying, don't wake up at the end of the day. All of a sudden say, okay, it's a powerful moment that counterintuitively is created by a belief in many moments, by a belief in the fact that we have to be there. We have to be there for Hashem to be able to say, I accept what you're saying on Yom Kippur. You're not just here for Yom Kippur. You're here day in and day out. You went to the minyan in the morning. You gave tzedakah. You did. There are two times in Parshas Ki Tavo. There are two formulas known as viduyim. The first one is the more famous of the two. It's vidui bikurim. It's the formula that you recite when you bring the first fruits to the Beis HaMikdash. Then there's a second vidui. Second vidui, most people don't pay attention to, but it's the more powerful of the two. And that is the vidui that I say at a certain point in the Maaser cycle, where I turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I've been there. I did this, and I did that, and I took care of this, and I gave there, and I did. And you outline a variety of things that you did within the Maaser cycle and say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm there. I was there. And what's fascinating is that second vidui introduces a tefillah, where after saying, I did this and I did that, what I do is I turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I say, Hashkifa mim'on kadshecha, look down from your lofty place, your lofty holy place, and bless the nation. And the rabbis point out that the word hashkifa normally is used only in the negative, when Hashem is about to punish. And what they say is that this vidui, the second vidui, this vidui has the ability to transform HaKadosh Baruch Hu's anger, to transform HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will to punish, and to make it a powerful force in the opposite direction. And I've always felt that what they're saying is, Vidui Bikurim is very nice. Once a year I come and I say it, but I can't say Ashkifa. All I can do is say, this is what I've done. When I come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, however, and I say, I've been there year in and year out, I've done what I've had to do each time, then you can say Hashkifa. Then you can say. So Neila, which we see as a powerful, powerful moment, is really a moment that's built on other moments. And therefore, when we're davening Neila, we should be saying to ourselves, Kadosh Baruch Hu, we're going to try to be there even more. Kadosh Baruch Hu, we're trying to be there, we're going to be loyal, we'll do what we need to do, and we won't give up. And that's what Neila should be. Neila is the prayer that brings all the other prayers together and creates one uniform body. And Neila says it's ongoing participation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is demanding from us, not just the unique moments. That's the essence of Neila. I'm going to end with another thought. Not rising out of Neila, but speaking to the period after. You know, if the rabbis, they take away the drama. Neila, when you finally get to those last lines, right? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and it's powerful. And the closing of the gates, God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please, keep the gates open a little more. And then close. And that's the end of Neila. Except the rabbis say not so fast. You can continue this process that you feel reaches a crescendo at Neila through the next few days too. And it will course all the way through Sukkot to Shmini Atzeret to Hoshana Rabbah. And so Neila doesn't really mark the closing of the door. Well, that takes away the poetry, that takes away the majesty. What is it that needs to be added that can be added only through the days following Neila? What is it that the rabbis assume will be added by allowing tshuva to go on? And there are a variety of answers, but Rav Hutner Zatzal says something beautiful. He said, what Sukkot adds to the tshuva process is the simcha of doing tshuva. It's two sides of the same coin. One is I embitter myself because I'm doing tshuva. I've got to see the things I've done wrong. I've got to recognize what I've done wrong. But at the same time, on the other side of the coin is the glory, the happiness that comes with a reconciliation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. the simcha that comes from tshuva. And too often we miss that, the rabbis say. So this year, therefore, we have to. And I think that this last concept is particularly powerful for us this year. I'm sure that all of you have wondered, and I keep wondering, how we're going to celebrate Simchas Torah this year. What are we going to do? What can we do? What should we do? What's right? Where does the line between showing proper respect and not mourning, but because it's Yontif, but at least a recognition of solemnness to the fact that it's the anniversary, but at the same time it's Simchas Torah. So that's the challenge, I think, that the post-Neila period is going to present us with. And each one of us is going to have to answer that for ourselves. But the question, the struggle, should be asked. We should absolutely, Sukkot for us this year should be a Yontif that is particularly meaningful for each of us individually, but at the same time, it should be a Yontif that brings us all together. It should be a Yontif where we think about the klal, the totality. And when we dance, we should be thinking about what does it mean to be part of the Jewish people? What does it mean to be part of this nation that is picking itself up and acting in spite of the sorrow that it felt this past year? And therefore, after Neila, when the door doesn't close yet, then we should think about this, and we should find a way, each of us, in our own way, and each of us together with our own communities, how we are going to mark the occasions this year. On the one hand, we will be sad. On the other hand, we'll experience the simcha of reconciliation with the Kodesh Baruch Hu that Rav Hutner speaks about, and somehow we'll balance it. Somehow we'll balance it so that the days will be meaningful. My hope and my prayer is that we chose 3 moments of Yom Kippur among the myriad of moments that we could have chosen. Don't let the trumpet sound unheard. Recognize that throughout our lives we are presented in unexpected moments with tremendous opportunities. And when it comes to Yom Kippur, every moment is an opportunity. Let's be there, me'erev ad erev. Let's be there from evening to evening, marking the day and learning from it. Thank you.